welcome to another edition of Land and Legacy by Griffith Realty. I'm Scott Griffith. Today, my sister Carol is not with me, but we do these podcasts on a fairly regular basis. And today, we're really lucky because we're going to explore and kind of, I guess, talk about the great legacy of Livingston County and its agricultural history. And we're blessed to have the president of the Farm Bureau for Livingston County, Matt Munsell, here. Third generation or fourth generation in agriculture in Livingston County. And Matt, welcome. We're really glad to have you on our podcast,
All right. Thanks, Scott. Glad to be here.
I'd kind of like, I thought it'd be nice to start out with, you could just sort of give us, if there's such a thing as, what do you think the condition of the agricultural industry in Livingston County is nowadays, since we are a county that has gone through so much metamorphosis over the years?
I think ag in Livingston County is really doing good. It's very diversified. You still have the large cash crop farms, all the way down to there's small farms that are raising garlic. There's greenhouses. There's people raising gardens for fruit stands, and anything in between. So yeah, I think Livingston County's really diversified their agricultural background.
Well, and it really goes to how the industry is. You're talking about that, as we grew up, and I know you grew up the same way. It was big cash crops, kind of a wholesale mentality. You sold to the granaries, which then sold to other people, and now we see so much direct sales by farmers, by the roadsides, direct markets, so forth. And Livingston County seems to be right in the hub of that kind of activity, as far as I can tell. It seems like a whole lot of farmers have a direct retail operation of some sort. Is that correct?
A lot of farms do. Like I say, we still have the few big cash crop farms they're doing thousands of acres. But there is a lot of, we're blessed in Livingston County. We still have the agricultural ground, but we do have quite a bit of population. So population kind of feeds that direct market. If you don't have the population, then obviously it's hard to direct market your products. Sure. But there's a lot of population here, growth, and so they've kind of worked together over the years and built that up.
So in the 1990s, 2000, of course, the big news was the farming industry was contracting. A number of people, how should I say it? A lot of people were not going into farming. There were the mega farms, but not the smaller farmers. And then there was a lot of criticism of the industry, especially that we're in, of the development, and it was destroying the farmer. But yet the Michigan Farm Bureau, I was on one of their committees, and it was about growth, and a huge percentage of the loss of land was it going fallow because generationally the next generation didn't want to be in farming, and so there was a loss of farming, but it wasn't necessarily contributed to development. In Livingston County, development has certainly impacted it. I don't know what's your take on are we in like an equilibrium, or are we losing farming, or how are we in Livingston County as that goes?
I think it's a constant battle.
Is it?
As land prices rise, it's hard to get that out of it with a bushel of corn. A lot of farms are passed down, but to start out farming, I don't think anybody's going to start a large cash crop farm from ground zero. The banks wouldn't let you because you can't borrow $10 million and that kind of stuff.
Sure.
So I think the bigger farms and they've continued to grow. But as you say, when somebody retires from farming, a lot of times there isn't anybody there to take those reins. So they're either swallowed up by a bigger farm, or they get developed. And
Sure.
It kind of depends on where they're at in the county. We tend to think of the east side as a little bit more developed than the west side. West side, you're still getting into Weberville and that kind of stuff. Fowlerville, there's not near as much development as there is, in Brighton and that kind of stuff. So
I used to say
it's kind of a
yeah, go ahead. Yeah, I used to
it's
say
kind of an equilibrium, like you said.
the land that was worst, the hardest to farm, made for some of the prettiest subs. So that kind of got developed first. So kind of like you say, the east side kind of got, because they had all the hills and gravel and crap. And then as you went through Howell and to Fowlerville, where you had a lot more clay base and soils it was flatter. It made for better agriculture and probably not as desirable because people like the hills and the trees because they weren't farmed, and therefore it's sort of like you say. You can see how it works. It comes out that way. I think a lot of people don't understand that there's a lot of clay. Sometimes clay is a really good thing for farming because it holds the water, so forth, for corn and all, and that's also then really bad for septic. So it also, there's a double-edged knife there. Even if you could develop it, you might not be able to because of septic issues. So that's kind of ironic. That's where it goes. I was sort of thinking about, again, back to you're talking about the family the family and generational. Do we have mostly generational farms in Livingston County? Is that what you're saying?
Most of the bigger farms are generational.
Okay.
Like I said, there are quite a few farms now that are 10 acres or under. For instance, there's one, they used to be just north of Howell, but they're farther north now. They grow garlic.
That's just a darn thing. Yeah.
10 or 15 acres of garlic now. There's farms that are, there's a lot more 10 to 20 acre farms now than there used to be.
Sure.
But again, that comes from people, especially in the last couple of years, they can work from home now. So they can be at home. They don't have to travel. So there's 2 or 3 more hours in their day that they have. And then, it's just a direct market, which is, you can make a lot more money at the direct market. It's hard work, but there's definitely more pay at the end of the day than there is when you have to sell it to a wholesaler who then sells it to a packager that, has to have all their cuts out of it. So
sure. So specifically, Matt, you guys are remarkable because looking at your website and having been by your place, I think you do just about everything there is to do in farming, from animals to crops to you name it. How do you balance all that? I mean, each one can take up a whole portion of your life. I mean, do you? We have diversified over the years.
In 2000, we sold our dairy cows. It was getting to where the market was decent. We were going to have to do a bunch of upgrades. $1.5 million, $2 million, and we just kind of decided that wasn't the road we were going to go down. We were only milking 80 cows at the time. So kind of a smaller herd. And we just decided that there was other avenues to travel. So, we built our first greenhouse in 2004. So that was when we really kind of pushed our roadside market, to the forefront.
Sure.
So since then we've added 3 greenhouses. So we do vegetable plants, starters, hanging baskets, bedding plants, all that kind of stuff in the spring. And then in the summer, we don't do much. We're still baling hay and baling straw and combining wheat and rye and oats and that kind of stuff. And then in the fall, we do about 20 acres of pumpkins, which we sell all through our roadside market. And so we've really, that's the direct market. So that's really an added value. We also have a donut stand that we started 2 years ago. So we sell fresh donuts on the weekends.
Yeah.
And then we've added some cider slushies and that kind of stuff to it, to really give it the farm experience and making an outing for families if they want to get out locally and do something. So, and then we do Christmas trees in the fall. We do buy those in. It's not from a local guy. So
you're not cutting those in the back. Okay.
No, we're not cutting down Christmas trees. We don't sell that many. And we kind of just do that as it's almost a service to the community because we don't get a lot off of them. And you see what some people are charging for Christmas trees and holy cow. So,
well, last year we bought our pumpkins from you. I can't tell you it was by plan. It was one of those days where you're out for the drive and my wife says, we need to get pumpkins. I go, why not this place? And we pulled in.
There you go. Perfect. So,
yeah.
But we really have diversified over the years. Like I say, we direct market most everything we raise on the farm, with the exception of soybeans and our excess corn.
Okay.
And those two kind of fill in the marks. This year we got 85 acres of sunflowers. So we'll combine those seeds and sell those at the market. or direct sell those to elevators that are mixing bird feed.
Oh, okay.
And our rye, we bag all that there at the farm and sell that for cover crop seed, and oats the same way. We sell those for horse feed. So we've really kind of build a market up there where we direct market most everything, like I say, with the exception of the soybeans and the corn. So
how many people do you have on staff helping you do this? I mean, how big is your farm? I mean, how many people?
So my mom takes care of the greenhouses and the pumpkins. Me and Dad do the farming, and then we usually have, like now we have 3 or 4 high school kids that are helping us pick pumpkins. We usually have a couple high school kids that are help us in the greenhouses, and then I have 3 sisters and a brother, so they help out, and then nieces and nephews, and so yeah, sure. It's a family affair.
Yeah,
and uncles and aunts. So
I think people underestimate how many people are involved in the farming, no matter what size farm it is. So
yes, yep. Yeah. So there's days there's only 2 of us there. There's days that there's 20 of us there. So kind of depends on the season and what's going on.
So with the Ukrainian fight and being one of the largest suppliers of wheat in the world, how is that impacting wheat pricing? And do you see more Americans doing more growing of wheat to try to fill in that gap, or what's your thoughts on that?
So we actually don't grow any wheat, but wheat is a very, I hate to say temperamental crop, but the last couple of years, last fall was real hard on wheat. It was hard to get it in. If you didn't get it in early, there wasn't much. It started raining in the middle of September, and it didn't quit till Christmas. So a lot of the wheat didn't make it through, which I think was a lot of it. The price was up this year, but the price of everything was up, but it had to be. The price of fertilizer and everything else was up. So it definitely drove it a little bit. I'm not sure, I wouldn't know right offhand how much exactly it was, but it was definitely something we were watching.
Sure. I imagine every farmer would. I would just try to get a sense of how it happens. I know technology has just revolutionized farming, but it comes with a price. So every farmer can't be out buying the latest satellite, whatever that drives. But I wondered, is it really truly beneficial for you? Do you notice a significant difference when you buy the equipment that has all that technology on it?
So we are just starting to get into that market.
Sure.
It's finally funneling down, as you said. Not everybody can go out and buy it as soon as it comes out.
Right.
So we don't have anything that's auto steer yet, but we do. This year was the first year we planted. Our corn planter has GPS on it, so we GPS that, and so it'll be interesting to see this fall. We'll be able to put that same GPS on the combine,
nice.
So we'll be able to tell what we planted where and how well it yielded and other things. So, but yeah, it makes a difference. There's a million different things you can do, from, prescript planning to, which is basically they write a prescription for the field. So varying on soil types, it'll increase or decrease the population that you plant, and increase or decrease fertilizer application. And it's really kind of, it's mind-boggling, even on the side that when you see it all the time that can do that. So
isn't that interesting? Yeah, if people don't know it, I just wanted you to touch on it because it's such a fascinating part of farming that you don't think about, right? So computers are getting to be a huge thing into it. Like our corn planter now has a touchscreen monitor, and so everything is touchscreen on it, and that's cool.
So it's crazy.
So what's the biggest challenge that you face now in being a farmer? I mean, what do you see as the challenge currently, and what do you think is the biggest challenge coming?
I think the biggest challenge is labor is obviously a big one. We're kind of fortunate that we have such a big family. We can lean on pretty heavy, but labor is a big issue for agriculture in general. Whether it's Livingston County or the state of Michigan or the country, labor is probably the number one. Input costs would be up there. The inputs, and then the cost of, and it would also be in the inputs, just the cost of everything. you take land in the last couple of years, and you probably know this as well as anybody, but it's probably almost doubled in the last 5 to 10 years. And
Absolutely. Yeah.
so it's harder to, when you start penciling it, like, well, so.
And I think, obviously, when you talk about the land, that means when it's that expensive, your assessor thinks it's that expensive. So your taxes are going up, even though you're doing nothing but the same thing you were doing. So
Yes.
you have to deal with that, right? So yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, that's a toughie, I'm sure. So as you go into the future, can a farmer keep doing what they're doing, or it seemed like in the old days everybody had to get it bigger and bigger to make it work because it got the economies of scale. Can you continue to operate at the same scale you're at and still be able to make your margins, you believe?
I think you can. You just have to market things differently. Like we direct market our grain, so and it's one of those things. Along with technology, it's made it so it's easier. So a lot of guys do have off-farm jobs.
Sure.
So they're working the farm at home, and then they have an off-farm job that pays some bills and keeps it going. I think as long as you adapt, I think you could. Obviously you're not going to farm the same way you did 10, 15 years ago. But that's the way it is with anything. It's always evolving and that way. So
that's great, Matt. Yeah. So what's your take on why some of the largest billionaires in the world are buying the mega farms of the country, like Bill Gates? Do you think they just see the opportunity, or do you think what's the scuttle, I guess, in the farming community, why that happens?
Well, I think in my mind, there's a couple things in this world that they don't make any more of, and land is one of them.
Sure.
So it's a precious resource, and there's only so much of it. They're not going to drain the oceans. They're not going to fill in the lakes. They're going to, there's only so much. So they can buy it, and then there's a couple groups in Michigan even that are buying ground, and then they turn around and rent it. So they're making their investment, and then they're pulling their dividends on it, and like I say, land is not going to go down in value, so it's a hard asset.
Yeah, it's kind of what I thought too. I just wonder what your take was on the farming side, because it's just a fascinating anomaly that's taking place, and a lot of people aren't aware of it. Some people are, So yeah, it's kind of fascinating. So yeah, and
it's not only the investors; it's foreign countries as well.
Really? Didn't know
some
that.
states have a very high foreign countries are buying up farm ground. Some states out like in the I's, so Illinois, Iowa, Indiana, they are actually in the process of getting legislation to curtail the foreign investment and foreign owning of farmland.
Fascinating.
That's kind of a food security issue that's coming down the pike, and so it's kind of crazy. But yes, there's a lot of people that aren't involved in agricultural that are buying agricultural land. So
yeah, that's what you hear. So what's your favorite thing about farming? What keeps you in the business?
Well, probably the number one would be it's different every day.
I bet it is. So's our weather.
When you wake up in the morning, you never know what you're going to end up doing. So it never gets boring, never gets, there's always something different. And most of the time, it's there's different times of the year, planting and harvest is busy. But it's something different every day, and it's the idea that you get up, and when you get done at the end of the day, you've either grown something that's going to feed somebody, or you've cared for an animal that will live now, or and there's heartbreak that goes along with it too, but it's rewarding.
Well, I admire what you do, and we're grateful for it, obviously. Is there anything that the Farm Bureau or the agricultural community needs from the community that they should be aware of that goes forward, or just keep on buying at those roadsides?
Well, anytime you can support directly is always good. But just stay informed. That's the biggest thing. And then with anything, there's a lot of news out there that's not news. But just make a relationship with somebody and ask a question, most of us are all happy to answer it and chat with you. And so, yeah. Yep.
Well, coming from a generational family in my industry, and you're coming from one, I'm very proud of it. I'm sure you're very proud of it too. And so it feels pretty good, right? We're lucky to be in Livingston County. So yeah,
it does. So
yeah. So I appreciate your time today, Matt, as president of the Farm Bureau and everything you do. And I wish you guys the best of luck, and hope things keep going well and the weather keeps being good for you, since Michigan's a challenge. And we really thanks for being on our podcast today. We really appreciate it. So,
all right.
Thanks.
Well, thanks for the invite.
Thanks, Matt. Yep. And with that, I guess that'll be another edition of Land and Legacy by Griffith Realty.